His Holiness the Dalai Lama was recently in Zurich, where 10,000 people followed his teachings. Right afterwards, a conference was held about Tibetan Buddhism in Europe. Tibetan and Western Dharma teachers discussed how to preserve the essence of Buddhism in the West, how to benefit people, foster basic human values in society, and promote interreligious dialogue.
The reason why we have this conference is there have been more and more interest in the West for Buddhism. And then as a result of, this good interest, what we also want to make sure is that we continue to retain the essence of Buddhism, because what I feel is that sometimes people tend to be very creative, sometimes maybe with not very good motivations, just to get more people or just to get more attracted to Buddhism. Some people then may be too creative and may deviate from the essence of Buddhism. And this will not help, because the message of Buddhism, or the whole goal of Buddhism, is that either directly or indirectly, it must help to subdue negative affliction.
Now we are in 21st century, and of course the material development is now highly reached, very high, very much advanced. Still, firstly, I think among humanity there are quite substantial people who are still having genuine interest about religious faith. Now, there are some unfortunate disasters, so-called terrorism or these things. Obviously, these are, I think, the lack of, long-sightedness. So therefore, in order to take countermeasure for these unhealthy thing, we need, I think, two levels. One, certainly for temporary method, temporary level, the various government they are taking. But then long run, I think the more healthier society, more compassionate society, and I think including in various education institutions, pay more attention about non-violence, dialogue. Perhaps I think these concepts become something, some kind of important lesson in their study, so that the younger generation, the concept of dialogue, concept of non-violence, become part of their life.
Dharma is really a way to elevate the suffering. And as you know, in the West, there's so much mental suffering. And I think Dharma is really a medicine that can help to elevate our mind and hearts, and that is very much really a remedy. I think what's important to know that Dharma is not, or the Buddhism has not come, or Tibetan Buddhism has not come here to convert anybody into Buddhism, but rather to offer whatever we can to elevate the suffering of beings. That's what Dharma is. And so I think it's something that people wanted here in the West. So that's why it's coming.
We are so overloaded with sensual attractions, in our country and in Europe and in the West in general. And we don't have any more time for contemplation, for taking just some rest, to think about certain things. And we are always rushing. So I think it's very important just to sit down for some time every day, take some rest and do meditation on certain topics. This is in general, I think, for the mental health, very important.
You can find all sorts of stress in the West, much more than some other places. And this is because we are really, we find, of course, different types of students, and according to their dedications. Very often you find they are coming into Dharma not because they are interested to be able to free themselves and benefit others. That's not the case. Very often they are maybe physically not well. They did all the kind of treatments, or they wouldn't find good solutions, or maybe they're mentally a little bit disturbed. They went through all the things and then couldn't find. They were hoping that they heard, like in Tibetan Buddhism, there's some kind of magic, I don't know what, and they come with real lot of expectations, and often that's not the case. Then there are some kind of problems and difficulties.
Buddhism is about transforming the mind. And that even though they are outward form of Buddhism, but I think the most important thing is about, as Dalai Lama often says, Buddhism is not about rituals, not about ceremonies, but it's about transforming the mind. I think that way, you see, it comes from very much training the mind, transforming the mind. And also what I think fundamental belief in Buddhism is that we all have the potential of wisdom and compassion in us, potential of enlightenment within ourselves. But it is like the sky that's been obscured by the clouds of ignorance. So that once we're able to remove that through the teachings, through the study and practice, to remove the obscuration, the defilement, then inherent wisdom, like when the cloud-like thoughts, emotions clear away through study and practice, then sky-like nature mind shines forth, and from that true nature, like the sun, with this tremendous brilliance, which is wisdom, and warmth, which is compassion, shines forth.
Now, among the Buddhist countries where Vinaya tradition remain, like Thailand, Burma, Sri Lanka, no longer Bhikshuni. And Chinese case, some monastery in Taiwan, now they carry the ordination of Bhikshuni. So actually, one meeting there, when I was, I think, my second visit to Taiwan, the Chinese bhikshu stressed the importance of reviving the Bhikshuni vow in other tradition. I think firstly, we need some kind of education, the senior bhikshus of the mind. Now, this is 21st century. Now, everywhere, now we are talking about equal. That's precious. Equality. Now, in any case, you see, recently, I expressed among Tibetan or among Chinese or among, I think, European, I think among the female, we can find bigger number who really showing interest about any religion, particularly Buddhist Dharma. Like in the whole Himalayan regions, when I give some teaching, the male less, female more. Now I think I prefer not Tibetan Anila, but Western Buddhist Anila. I feel if you carry this work, may be more effective. You need some money. So naturally, all our bhikshunis, you see, they not very rich. So suddenly, I would like to give you some sort of donation from my royalty survey. Royalty, of course, you see, these books, I never sort of wrote these books aiming for money. But now money seems to automatically come. So no harm, okay. So I would like to set up some kind of little fun.
Yeah, this was indeed a great surprise for me today, because I didn't expect that today the question of the bhikshuni ordination, the full ordination of Buddhist nuns would be raised here in this auditorium. And I have dealt with this topic for almost 20 years, and actually I thought about should I speak about it or not, and then I felt, well, it's not the real topic of the conference, so I better leave it, But then I was really surprised today that His Holiness was so clear about it and so outspoken. I think he really wants to have the bhikshunis, the full ordained nuns in the Tibetan tradition.
What would it actually mean for women in Buddhism?
Well, equality, I think, to have the same chances. We don't want that everybody becomes a nun or a monk. Nowadays, not so many are choosing this way. But at least also women should be free to enter the order and become a fully ordained nun if they want to for their spiritual path. And this is lacking in many countries. And we have actually an International Buddhist Women's Association, Sakyadhita, who is struggling for it for many years now. It was the first conference, international conference on Buddhist nuns, was inaugurated in 1987 in Bodh Gaya, the place where the Buddha became enlightened, by His Holiness the Dalai Lama himself. And he was already at that time very clear about his plans, that nuns should go for full ordination. But I think it's very difficult to change society in every country, not only within the Tibetans.
But also I think it's very important is that, I've noticed on many occasions that people initially they were a little bit afraid to come to Buddhism because they feel maybe they're being unfaithful to their own religion. But what really experience has shown, many people are feeling crisis with their own faith in Christianity. Coming to Buddhism, I have a number of students who came through there, it actually strengthened their faith in Christianity. So Buddhism is not about making people into Buddhists or converting, as particularly His Holiness Dalai Lama. And our approach is always said, it's not offered with any exclusivity or conversion, but really offered with really openness of heart. So I find that many people come to Buddhism and find strength in their own, faith. And that, I think, when that happens, I always say to people, if Buddhism helps a Christian practitioner to become a better Christian, I think Buddha will be very happy. I think the point is not so much about whether you become Buddhist or Christian, but that you are a good spiritual practitioner in whatever tradition you belong to. That's the key point. I think the wonderful thing about the Dharma is it transcends dogma.
Buddhism embraces everybody. Why? Everybody wants happiness. Nobody wants suffering. We are same in pursuit of disinterest. So that's why, we have to embrace everybody. And especially we should have a cordial relationship among ourselves. And in this way we can have happiness inside. If you have some kind of ill feeling against others, we are unhappy inside, isn't it? But instead, if we have such a good thought towards everybody, we are happy, it makes others happy. What a wonderful world it will be, isn't it? So this is my game, This is why I'm really I feel so good about Buddhism, I have studied in Western schools, in Indian schools. I have a mentality like that, but it really gives me so much, happiness, because this really gives so much happiness where you feel so good with everybody. Doesn't matter whether you're Buddhist or not. You're a human being,
We have to enter Dharma with a proper intelligence. And first of all, in the past, I have heard from my teachers that more than teacher would examine the students. Students should be able, if they want to engage on the path, they should examine the teacher. And for example, we're not going to enter in a plane unless we know, we trust the company, we know they have good pilots. We're not going to jump in it and to kill ourselves. As more than that, Dharma is a teaching that we are trying to engage, and so we have to examine the teacher in the past at least 12 years. And of course, we don't have time to, but at least I think it's important to examine the teacher. And when we find the teacher is really authentic, and then I think we should try to really follow the kind of path. But also Buddha said that I can only show the way. It's up to you. So therefore, really, it's our own responsibility.
Almost psychologically speaking, our Western culture and tradition is very extroverted. And I think there is more importance to introversion, that is, to turning inside and to learn methods to quiet the mind in a hectic time, in a time when nobody has time, to learn to be centered, and then also, as His Holiness has said, on the basis of that, create a deeper understanding of the true nature of reality, and also to develop compassion. My studies has been Jungian psychology and Buddhism, and that relationship interests me very deeply. And there are many connections which I find very striking. As far as Sijin Jung himself is concerned, that he was highly interested in Buddhism, in the Eastern religion, and that is because he found that there were so many parallels to his own findings that came from his own experience, from his own dreams, or also from his work with patients. And one really is the discovery that in the West, in certain moments of their life, people get in touch with what he called the self, which is like the center of the personality, which is very different from the ego, which he considered to be the center of the conscious personality. And the most striking symbol of that is what he later called the mandala, after he got in touch with Buddhism, also with Hinduism. He recognized that there is a symbol of wholeness in the East as well, which is very similar to what people experience when they get in touch with the wholeness here. So remaining in touch, for example, through the understanding of our dreams, through the understanding of our unconscious, prevents from being superficial in our practice, from just covering up or escaping into a kind of a fairy tale type of Buddhism. Because it is a philosophy that includes all human beings and does not exclude.
Personally, I've been involved with the interreligious dialogue between Buddhism and Islam, and there's a great deal of misunderstanding of Islam and identification of all of Islam with just small terrorist fanatic groups, which you have terrorist fanatic groups in all religions. But when you look in terms of the importance of this is really crucial in terms of the future of Tibet. In Tibet, there are so many settlers coming in from China, and a large portion of them are the Hui minority, which is a Muslim minority. And if there isn't an understanding and clarification of the historical relationship between the two, then very difficult for the people to come together and to live harmoniously. And if you look from a geopolitical point of view as well, in the whole region, you have the traditionally Buddhist areas of Tibet and Mongolia, and then you have the traditional Islamic areas of East Turkestan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, etc. And these areas share a common type of, economic background in terms of herds and nomads and these sort of things. So they need to work together as a geopolitical entity. And that requires the understanding in terms of Buddhism and Islam. In Islam, they recognize people of the book. And they are, if the people of those following a people of the book, then it's perfectly tolerated. Sure, historically they had to pay an extra tax in order to keep their religions, but they were allowed to keep their religions and shown a certain amount of respect for that. What does it mean to be people of the book? People of the book, well, some people say that that refers to having a sense that there is a higher ethical basis for, the universe. And if one accepts that, then one is a people of the book. It doesn't necessarily mean thinking in terms of God and so on, but the broader type of basis which is there. And it's quite interesting in some of the ancient Central Asian languages, Sogdian, for example, which was spoken in the Uzbekistan area, the word that was used for translating Dharma, which is the word for the Buddhist teachings, is the word book.
My father, Kangyur Rinpoche, was my root teacher, who was one of my root teachers. In 1950, he knew what's going to happen in Tibet. And he left with a lot of large collection of books out of Tibet. He used to say that it's important to preserve these unique teachings and books, which is a heritage and treasure of the universe and the world. These books need to be preserved. And he left out of Tibet with the books and books and books. And these books, when we reprinted them and served great need of the other lamas who came, and later from Tibet, And so his main wish is to preserve these precious teachings. And of course, the book does not speak. Therefore, we need the teachers. And not only the teachers, but of course, really the experience that's important. And in Tibet, we consider the guidance experience, like the really close guidance is very important. But instructions are very important. This something that they really had wished to preserve them.
Well, my father was a very, very kind and religious person, and he wanted me to learn to read and how to write. So even when we were living in Sherpa land, I was taught how to learn, how to read, and how to read the Tibetan scriptures. So I used to read, every day I would read the Diamond Kata Sutra, and he would give me one corn present for doing that. So it was a tough thing, but because I wanted to eat the corn, so I had to do it every morning, Anyway, so I learned, this way. But then when I went to school, because I went to English medium schools and I went to church every Sunday, and then, I lost that, during the school period. But then inside, of course, I was, I just remained the same. Now, when I went to Nepal, and that was 1971, I found all the hippies, all just, taking the drugs and, just singing and all the Bob Dylan music and the Rolling Stones, wow, long hairs and everybody just, wearing funny dresses. And they were all, having these Buddhas in their rooms, the Tankas, and they were going Kora, circumambulation across the Bodhanath Stupa. I felt a bit ashamed, that I'm a Buddhist, but I'm not doing anything. These guys are doing, So I took more interest.
Previously, there used to be talk among the Tibetans, oh, well, you see, Western people, they're just asatsabu, They're just a little bit novelty-seeking, just come to Tibetan Buddhism so out of asar. But we realize that's not the case. Over the years, they become more and more serious, so much so that the dedication that Western students show is as much, if not more, than some of the Tibetans, or some of the, I would say, the Easterners. That's why when you see Western students with the dedication, because they have to work, they have family, they have situation not very easy, but in spite of that, the kind of the dedication they gave is quite amazing. Like often I remember the Germans used to say, how amazing they have work, family, all this, still they come to the teachings, you know. It's really amazing. So therefore they're really, I think they're serious about it. And that's why I think the lamas are taking seriously. And very seriously, I remember Thich Nhat Hanh saying to me, Rinpoche, teach the West, it will help the East.
The preservation of Tibetan Buddha Dharma, automatically Tibetan freedom is something very close linked. In the past, you see, Tibet firstly vast land and very difficult to communicate. So each lama or monastery, remain their own area and no longer interest, no more interest about the sense of community. So that's why I think it's due to lack of cooperation, due to lack of communication, due to lack of the sense of sort of common responsibility. I think our today's tragedy is happened. So therefore, from our past experience, as a community and closer connection is, I think, very, very essential. So therefore, now the small pockets here and there in different countries who are carrying Tibetan Buddhist tradition, I think important to have this kind of meeting and discuss this, nothing to do with set up some kind of central authority, nothing. That each complete independence, meantime, close work. We are follower of Buddha. And all the Nalanda masters, we are follower of Nalanda masters. As you know, firstly, Buddha's teaching is, teach according to reality. So therefore, all the Nalanda masters, their works also, you see, give us the information and to find the reality. Why? Many disasters, many unwanted things happen because of unrealistic approach. So now, any wrongdoing or any sort of mistake, actually, they, without knowing fully about the reality. So wrong method bring more unhealthy things. So how to expel that? Through discussion. So we need frank discussion.